The boardroom fell silent as Brynlee stood tall at the head of the long mahogany table, Phoebe's hand warm in hers despite the icy stares from the 12 men seated around it. "Gentlemen, this is Phoebe, my partner, and I will not hide our relationship any longer," Brynlee said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade, even as her heart pounded with the weight of what she knew was coming. The words hung in the air, heavy and irreversible, while the air conditioning hummed softly overhead, doing nothing to cool the sudden heat rising in the room. Brynlee could feel the shift immediately. Victor Hargrove, the longest-serving board member, and a devout church elder whose donations to conservative causes were legendary in Silicon Valley circles, leaned forward, his bushy gray eyebrows knitting together in disbelief. "Brynlee, this is highly inappropriate," he began, his southern drawl thickening with disapproval. "We are a publicly traded company. Our investors expect stability, not personal revelations that could tank the stock." The other members murmured in agreement, some averting their eyes, others scribbling notes as if documenting a crime scene. Phoebe squeezed Brynlee's hand gently, a silent anchor, her own pulse racing beneath the calm exterior she had practiced in the mirror that morning. Brynlee had built ValorTech from a garage startup into a billion-dollar AI firm over 12 years. At 34, she was the youngest female CEO in the industry's top tier, known for ruthless efficiency and visionary leadership. But none of that shielded her now. She had rehearsed this moment for weeks, lying awake beside Phoebe in their quiet San Francisco apartment, staring at the ceiling while Phoebe traced soothing circles on her back. "They'll understand eventually," Phoebe had whispered, her voice soft with the optimism that had first drawn Brynlee to her 3 years ago at a charity gala. Phoebe was a social worker, grounded in community work, the complete opposite of Brynlee's high-stakes world. Their love had grown quietly at first, stolen weekends in Napa, late-night talks about everything and nothing, until it became the one thing Brynlee refused to compromise. Yet compromise was exactly what the board demanded. Victor cleared his throat again. "This isn't about judgment, Brynlee. It's about perception. Our largest institutional investors include faith-based funds. A public relationship like this, it sends the wrong message." He didn't say the words sin or abomination, but they echoed in the subtext, the same rhetoric Brynlee had heard from her own mother back in Texas during rare holiday visits. Brynlee's family attended the same megachurch every Sunday. Her father still forwarded her emails quoting scripture about marriage being between a man and a woman. She had never told them about Phoebe. Not until last month, when the guilt of secrecy finally cracked her resolve. As the meeting dragged on, accusations flew in polite corporate language. Brand risk, shareholder value erosion, leadership distraction. Brynlee countered each one with data. ValorTech's diversity initiatives had boosted innovation by 23% last quarter. Studies showed inclusive leadership correlated with higher retention. But facts bounced off walls built from decades of tradition. Phoebe stood beside her, silent but present, her simple navy blouse and slacks a quiet rebellion against the power suits surrounding them. Brynlee glanced at her, drawing strength from the way Phoebe's eyes held steady, full of love that needed no defense. By the time the gavel struck to adjourn, the board had issued an ultimatum: retract the statement publicly within 48 hours or face a vote of no confidence. Brynlee walked out with Phoebe, the hallway echoing their footsteps. "You didn't have to do that for me," Phoebe said softly once they reached the elevator. Brynlee stopped, turning to face her. "I did it for us. For me." The doors closed, sealing them in temporary privacy, but the real storm was only beginning. Outside, San Francisco fog rolled in, mirroring the uncertainty clouding Brynlee's mind. She had always believed truth was the ultimate strategy. Now she wondered if strategy had any room for truth at all. Back at their apartment that evening, Brynlee paced while Phoebe made tea. The call from her mother came at 8 sharp, as predictable as Sunday service. "Brynlee Elizabeth, what on earth were you thinking? Your father saw the clip on the news. The church prayer chain is already lighting up." Brynlee closed her eyes, the familiar guilt twisting like an old knife. Her mother wasn't cruel, just certain. Certain that love between women was a phase, a test, a deviation from God's plan. Phoebe sat nearby, listening without interrupting, her presence a reminder that Brynlee was no longer alone in that certainty. The night stretched long with whispered conversations. Phoebe shared stories from her work with LGBTQ youth rejected by families, her voice steady but eyes distant. Brynlee listened, realizing for the first time how her privilege as CEO had shielded her from the raw edges Phoebe navigated daily. "I won't ask you to choose between me and your company," Phoebe said finally, curling into Brynlee on the couch. "But I won't watch you destroy yourself pretending to be someone else either." Brynlee held her closer, the decision already forming in the quiet spaces between heartbeats. She would fight, but fighting meant losing something. She just didn't know what yet. The next morning, headlines screamed across tech blogs. ValorTech CEO comes out in dramatic board meeting. Stock dipped 3% before the market even opened. Brynlee's phone buzzed nonstop with messages from allies and critics alike. Victor Hargrove left a voicemail, his tone measured but firm. "Think of the employees, Brynlee. This isn't just about you." She deleted it, but the words lingered. No one was entirely wrong. Victor believed he was protecting livelihoods built on conservative values. Brynlee believed she was protecting something deeper, her right to exist fully. The line between protection and control blurred, and she felt the first cracks of doubt forming. By midday, the pressure escalated into something Brynlee could no longer contain behind closed doors. Her executive assistant, Marcus, knocked hesitantly before entering the corner office overlooking the bay. 3 major investors called. "One is threatening to pull out unless you issue a clarification." Brynlee stared at the spreadsheet on her screen, numbers blurring as her mind replayed the board's faces. Phoebe had gone to work at the community center, leaving Brynlee alone with the silence and the weight of choices. She picked up the phone and dialed her lawyer, Elena Ruiz, a sharp-witted woman who had guided ValorTech through 2 acquisitions. Elena arrived within the hour, her briefcase clicking open on the glass desk. "Legally, they can't fire you for being gay. California protections are clear. But they can make your life hell with performance reviews and shareholder votes." They reviewed bylaws for an hour, dissecting every clause. Elena's pragmatism clashed with Brynlee's resolve. "Sometimes the smartest move is strategic retreat," Elena suggested gently. "A vague statement about privacy. Buy time." Brynlee shook her head. "That would be lying. To Phoebe. To myself. To every employee watching." Elena sighed, respect flickering in her eyes. "Then we fight. But know this, fights like this cost more than money." That afternoon, Brynlee called an emergency all-hands meeting via video. 200 employees logged in, faces filling the screen in neat grids. She spoke without notes. "I am in a loving relationship with a woman. It does not change my commitment to this company or to you. But if our values here cannot include honesty, then perhaps I am not the right leader." Gasps rippled through the chat. Supportive comments flooded in from younger staff. Older ones remained silent. Later, her head of HR pulled her aside. "We've had 3 resignations already. Not everyone is ready, Brynlee." The words stung because they were true. Change demanded sacrifice, and sacrifice always hurt someone. Phoebe met her for dinner at their favorite Thai place near the apartment, the one with the cozy corner booth where they had first said, "I love you." Over spring rolls, Phoebe shared her day, helping a teenager whose parents had kicked him out after he came out as gay. "He reminded me of you at that age," Phoebe said quietly. Brynlee's throat tightened. She had hidden her feelings through college, dating men to please her family, until the emptiness became unbearable. Meeting Phoebe had felt like breathing after years underwater. "I keep thinking about my mom," Brynlee admitted. "She raised me to believe love is supposed to look a certain way. Part of me wonders if I'm breaking her heart on purpose." Phoebe reached across the table. "You're not breaking anything. You're building something better. But building hurts too." The conversation turned to the board's next move. Rumors swirled that Victor was rallying votes for a special meeting. Brynlee's father texted that evening. "Pride goeth before a fall, daughter. Call your mother." She stared at the screen until it went dark. That night, sleep evaded her. She lay awake listening to Phoebe's even breathing, wondering if her decision had already set irreversible consequences in motion. The company she had poured her life into now felt like a battlefield where every victory wounded someone she cared about. The following day brought the first real fracture. Victor scheduled a closed-door session with key shareholders. Brynlee was not invited. Instead, she received a formal letter outlining, Concerns regarding leadership alignment with stakeholder values. The language was clinical, but the intent clear. Conform or step aside. Phoebe read it over Brynlee's shoulder, her hand resting protectively on Brynlee's back. They make it sound like you're the problem, she said. But the problem is fear. Brynlee nodded, yet doubt crept in during quiet moments. Was her stand courageous or selfish? Employees depended on Valortech for mortgages, college funds, health insurance. Her truth felt noble in theory. In practice, it risked their futures. She met with her mentor, retired founder Thomas Riley, at a waterfront cafe. Thomas had always treated her like a daughter. I built this place on merit, not politics, he said over black coffee. But the world changed. Maybe you changed it faster than it was ready. His words carried no judgment, only the weariness of someone who had seen boardroom wars before. Whatever you decide, own it completely. Half measures destroy more than bold ones. Brynlee left the meeting clearer but heavier. Boldness had a price tag measured in relationships, not just revenue. Tension peaked when the local news station requested an interview. Brynlee declined at first, but Phoebe encouraged her. People need to see the real you, not the headlines. They sat together in the studio, hands linked openly under the bright lights. The reporter, a polished woman in her 40s, asked the expected questions about company impact and personal journey. Brynlee answered honestly, describing the internal war between the girl raised on Bible verses and the woman who had found love that felt divine in its own way. Phoebe spoke of her work, grounding the conversation in everyday humanity. Viewers flooded social media afterward, half praising courage, half decrying moral decay. Her mother called again that night, voice trembling. The pastor mentioned you in prayer group, said we should love the sinner but hate the sin. Brynlee's chest ached. She pictured her mother in the same kitchen where she had baked cookies after school, now torn between faith and family. Mom, I love you. But I love Phoebe too. And that love isn't a sin. The line went quiet. I don't know how to reconcile that, baby. Neither did Brynlee. The conversation ended without resolution, leaving both women crying in separate cities. At the office, whispers followed her down hallways. Some colleagues offered quiet support. Others avoided eye contact. Victor cornered her after a strategy meeting. I have grandchildren, Brynlee. I don't want them growing up thinking this is normal. His sincerity surprised her. He wasn't a villain. He was a grandfather shaped by his own upbringing. I respect your beliefs, Victor. But forcing me to hide mine doesn't make yours stronger. They parted without agreement, yet the exchange lingered. No one was completely right. Tradition provided stability. Identity provided meaning. Both were human necessities colliding in the same boardroom. Phoebe suggested a weekend away to clear their heads. They drove to Big Sur, renting a cabin overlooking the ocean. Waves crashed below while they sat on the deck, wrapped in a blanket. Whatever happens with the company, Phoebe said, we have this. Us. Brynlee wanted to believe it, but the board's next move loomed. Back in the city Monday morning, an email arrived. Special shareholder meeting scheduled for Friday. Agenda: leadership review. Brynlee forwarded it to Elena. They're moving fast. Elena's reply was blunt. Prepare for war or prepare your exit package. The days blurred into strategy sessions and sleepless nights. Brynlee drafted a proposal, expanding diversity training, creating an employee resource group, public commitment to inclusive policies. She presented it to her inner circle. Marcus supported it enthusiastically. This could turn the narrative. But Victor's faction leaked the draft, framing it as agenda-driven distraction. Stock dipped another 2%. Brynlee stared at the charts, wondering if her fight was saving the company or sinking it. Family pressure intensified when her brother flew in unannounced. Dad's not well, he said over coffee. This stress is killing him. Brynlee felt the guilt like a physical blow. Her father had taught her to code on an old laptop, proud of her ambition. Now that ambition threatened the family harmony he cherished. Tell him I'm sorry, she whispered. Her brother hugged her. Just think about what you're willing to lose. The question haunted her through every meeting. Friday's shareholder meeting arrived under gray skies. Brynlee entered the auditorium alone this time. Phoebe waited outside, respecting the corporate boundary. 200 investors filled the seats. Victor opened with prepared remarks about fiduciary duty and cultural alignment. Brynlee listened, then stood to present her counterproposal. She spoke for 20 minutes, outlining how authenticity strengthened leadership, citing research and personal conviction. Applause came from some corners, stony silence from others. The vote was called. Brynlee held her breath as hands rose. The motion to censure her leadership passed by a narrow margin. She was not removed, yet, but stripped of certain voting rights and placed on probation. The decision stunned the room. Victor approached afterward. This wasn't personal, Brynlee. It was necessary. She met his eyes. It feels personal when it changes everything. Phoebe met her in the hallway, pulling her into a tight embrace. You fought honorably, she murmured, but honor tasted like ash. That evening they sat on the apartment balcony watching city lights flicker on. Brynlee's phone buzzed with messages, employees expressing solidarity, family members pleading for reconciliation. Her mother texted, "We still love you. Come home soon." The words brought tears. Love had always been conditional in her family. Now she was testing its limits. Phoebe listened as Brynlee unpacked years of suppressed identity, the therapy sessions, the prayers for change that never came. Accepting myself didn't destroy my faith, Brynlee said. It deepened it. But deepening hurts the people who can't follow. The following week brought concrete losses. 2 key clients cited reputational concerns and walked away. Layoffs loomed to stabilize finances. Brynlee spent hours in HR meetings, personally reviewing each name, feeling the weight of every paycheck affected by her choice. Phoebe supported her through it, cooking meals and reminding her to breathe. Yet cracks appeared in their relationship too. One night Phoebe confessed, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm the reason your world is falling apart." Brynlee held her. "You're the reason it's worth saving." The reassurance helped, but doubt remained a silent third presence in their home. Her father called unexpectedly. His voice was weaker than she remembered. "I don't understand it, Brynlee. But I understand you. Don't lose yourself fighting everyone else." The conversation was short, but it shifted something inside her. Responsibility meant owning not just the wins but the collateral damage. She began to see the board not as enemies but as mirrors of societal fears. Fears she once shared. Climax built when the board demanded a final decision. Accept a revised role with reduced authority or resign gracefully. Brynlee requested one more full board session. She arrived early, setting out printed copies of her new proposal. Stepping down as CEO but remaining as strategic advisor, with a transition plan that protected jobs and launched a foundation for LGBTQ youth in tech. The room quieted as she spoke. "I choose truth over title, but I refuse to abandon the company I built. This way we all move forward." Victor studied the documents for a long moment. "This is unexpected." Debates erupted. Some argued it was a clever exit. Others saw integrity. In the end they voted to accept. Brynlee walked out no longer CEO but strangely lighter. Phoebe waited in the lobby, eyes searching. "You did it." Brynlee nodded. "I lost the title, but I kept my soul." They drove home in silence, hands linked, processing the new reality. The transition weeks tested her resolve. Former colleagues distanced themselves. Media labeled her both hero and cautionary tale. Her mother visited the first time in years. They sat in the living room, awkward but honest. "I still pray for you every day," her mother said. "But I see how happy Phoebe makes you." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a bridge. Brynlee took responsibility for the pain caused, apologizing without retracting her truth. Phoebe and Brynlee took a trip to the redwoods, hiking trails where ancient trees stood tall through storms. "We lost a lot," Phoebe said, leaning against a massive trunk. "But we gained each other completely." Brynlee agreed, the forest air clearing the last fog of regret. Awakening wasn't victory, it was peace with loss. Months later, Brynlee watched from her new advisory office as the company stabilized under fresh leadership. Stock recovered. The foundation she helped launch mentored dozens of young people, navigating their own identity journeys. Victor sent a handwritten note. "Respect earned the hard way." She smiled, tucking it away. Phoebe thrived in her work, their evenings filled with quiet conversations and shared dreams. One crisp autumn evening, they sat on the same balcony where doubts had once swirled. Brynlee turned to Phoebe. "Would you do it all again?" Phoebe's answer came without hesitation. Every painful step. Brynlee reflected on the journey. The boardroom shock, family fractures, corporate fallout, and the slow reclamation of peace. No one had been wholly right or wrong. Decisions that felt righteous had inflicted real wounds. Compromises once tempting would have eroded her core. In the end, responsibility meant carrying both the triumphs and the costs. She stared at the city lights, the question lingering in her mind long after the sun set. Was prioritizing her truth ultimately worth every loss it caused, or should she have found a way to honor tradition without sacrificing who she was?